I never thought I would be making this post, but I really need some outside perspective on my situation. I 20F have been completely blindsided by recent events involving my ex Mark 21M, my crush Jake 20M, and a new friend Sarah 20F. Let me start from the beginning. Mark and I started dating in our junior year of high school. We were the typical high school sweethearts, first loves, first everything. Everyone thought we were perfect together. Our families vacationed together, we went to prom together, and we even planned to attend the same college. I truly believed he was the one. Throughout our 4-year relationship, I never once doubted Mark's loyalty. He was always attentive, caring, and seemed completely devoted to me. We had our issues like any couple, but nothing major. He would bring me soup when I was sick, surprise me with flowers on random days, and always made time for our date nights despite his busy college schedule. That all changed in May. I was at Mark's apartment, and something felt off. He had been acting strange for a few weeks, being overly nice, buying me expensive gifts, constantly checking his phone. That day, while he was in the shower, I did something I had never done before, I checked his phone. What I found destroyed me. There were old messages and photos from 3 years ago showing he had cheated on me with a girl from his college. This happened just 7 months into our relationship when we were still in high school. The messages showed them meeting up multiple times, him telling her how special she was, planning their hookups around my schedule. The worst part was reading him joke about how clueless I was. I felt physically sick reading those messages. 3 years of memories were suddenly tainted. Every time he told me he was studying late, every weekend trip with the guys, was it all lies? I wanted to confront him immediately but couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I emotionally checked out of the relationship. Looking back, I should have ended things right then. But after 4 years together, the thought of being alone terrified me. All our friends were mutual friends, our families were close, our whole lives were intertwined. So I stayed, going through the motions while feeling dead inside. That's when Jake entered the picture. I met him at my friend Lisa's birthday party in June. I was sitting alone on the porch, trying not to cry after seeing Mark flirt with some girls inside. Jake came out and just started talking to me. Not hating on me, just genuine conversation. He made me laugh for the first time in weeks. After that night, Jake started hanging out with our friend group more often. He was so different from Mark. Where Mark was always trying to be the center of attention, Jake was quietly confident. He remembered little details about conversations we had weeks ago. He would send me funny memes that reminded him of inside jokes between us. I found myself developing strong feelings for him but couldn't act on them while still with Mark. Sarah joined our friend group about 2 months ago through another mutual friend. At first, she seemed really sweet and fun. She was always organizing group activities and trying to include everyone. But looking back, I see how calculated it all was. She would always manage to sit next to Jake during movie nights. She would find excuses to touch his arm while laughing at his jokes. When we went swimming, she conveniently forgot her towel so Jake had to lend her his. I tried not to be jealous since I was technically still with Mark, but it was hard watching her obvious flirting. 2 weeks ago, everything started falling apart. I was hanging out with Jake's best friend Tom, and after a few drinks, he accidentally told me something that changed everything. He said Jake had been crushing on me hard for months but felt he couldn't make a move because of Mark. Tom said Jake talked about me constantly and even turned down other girls because of his feelings for me. This gave me hope that maybe once I finally ended things with Mark, Jake and I could have a chance. Then came that disastrous Sunday night. Sarah invited Jake over to watch Netflix at her place, and he asked me to join them. I specifically asked if this would be awkward or if I would be third-wheeling. Jake insisted it wouldn't be weird and really wanted me to come, so I agreed. We were all drinking wine and everything seemed fine at first. We were watching some romantic comedy, all sitting on her couch with Jake between us. Then Jake went outside to get the food delivery we had ordered. That's when everything went sideways. Sarah suddenly called me upstairs to her room. I thought maybe she wanted to talk about something important or needed help with something. Instead, she walked straight to her mirror and started applying lip gloss while smirking at me in the reflection. Then she said those words that felt like a punch to my gut, that she needed to keep applying gloss in case she kissed someone tonight. The way she emphasized someone while looking at me made it clear she meant Jake. I was already pretty drunk at this point and started spiraling. All I could think about was how she was going to make a move on Jake, the guy I had fallen for while trapped in my dead relationship. I couldn't handle watching it happen. I mumbled something about feeling sick and practically ran out of her house. That night, I finally found the courage to break up with Mark. I didn't tell him about finding the messages. I just said I couldn't do it anymore. He seemed surprised but didn't fight very hard to keep me. On Wednesday, Jake texted asking if I wanted to spend the day with him. I agreed immediately, hoping to finally confess my feelings before it was too late. We had such an amazing day together. He took me shopping, then we stopped at this cute cafe for drinks. That's when he dropped the bomb that completely destroyed me. He and Sarah had become friends with benefits. He was so casual about it, saying they were just having fun and she was totally cool with keeping things casual. I tried so hard not to break down crying right there. I wanted to ask him about his supposed crush on me that Tom had mentioned, but I couldn't get the words out. Jake seemed to sense something was wrong and said I could tell him another time, though he had this look like he already knew what I wanted to say. What happened next just confused me more. After telling me about Sarah, Jake started being incredibly affectionate. He took me to this card shop to teach me how to play some game he was into and kept finding excuses to hold my hand or touch my arm. During dinner, he wouldn't stop complimenting me, saying how cute I looked when I blushed. He would stare into my eyes until one of us got nervous, then wink and grab my hand again. He even started feeding me bites of food from his plate. We ended up going back to his place for more drinks. That's when he finally pushed me to tell him what I had been trying to say all day. The alcohol and emotional exhaustion broke my defenses. I started crying and confessed everything, how much I loved him, how I had feelings for him all summer, how Tom told me about his crush on me. The look on his face said it all. He knew he had messed up badly. He tried getting me to stay and cuddle with him in his bed, saying he just wanted to comfort me. But I refused. I told him I would never do that to a friend, meaning Sarah. The fact that he would even suggest that after telling me about them being FWB just showed me what kind of person he really was. I've only spoken to him once since that night. I confronted him about why he would lead me on all day, holding my hand and being flirty, when he knew he was hooking up with Sarah. Learning he was a virgin before her somehow made it even worse. When I finally asked straight up if he wanted to be with me, all he said was I don't know and left it at that. Now Mark has found out about our breakup and has been trying to win me back with small gestures, leaving my favorite coffee on my doorstep, sending me playlists of songs that remind him of us. His roommates told me he's been completely miserable but won't tell anyone why. They said they've never seen him like this before. I'm completely lost. Jake clearly knew how I felt but still chose to hook up with Sarah while leading me on. Mark seems genuinely sorry but I don't know if I can ever trust him again after discovering his cheating. I just don't know what to do or how to handle any of this anymore. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your responses really opened my eyes to how much I was letting these people walk all over me. The past 3 weeks have been an emotional roller coaster, and somehow things have gotten even more complicated than before. I tried taking everyone's advice about focusing on myself and avoiding both guys. I deleted their numbers, unfollowed them on social media, and threw myself into my schoolwork. I even started going to the gym again, mainly to avoid our usual hangout spots where I might run into them. But as they say, life has a funny way of messing up your plans. Last Wednesday, I was studying at my favorite local coffee shop, one I specifically chose because it was on the other side of campus from where my friend group usually goes. I was deep into my assignment when someone cleared their throat next to my table. I looked up to find Sarah standing there. My first instinct was to grab my stuff and leave, but something in her expression made me pause. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her normally confident personality. She asked if we could talk, saying she had information I needed to hear. Against my better judgment and probably against the advice many of you would give, I agreed to let her sit down. What she told me over the next hour completely blindsided me. Apparently, Jake had been feeding her and me completely different stories. While he was being sweet and flirty with me, he was telling Sarah that I was this clingy friend he felt sorry for because of my bad relationship with Mark. He made it seem like I was desperately pursuing him despite him making it clear he wasn't interested. I sat there stunned as Sarah showed me their text conversations. There were messages from Jake complaining about how I was too attached and he needed to create some distance. In one particularly hurtful message, he called me emotionally unstable and said he was tired of dealing with my drama. This was the same guy who had been holding my hand and feeding me food at dinner just weeks ago. Sarah seemed genuinely surprised when I told her about Jake's behavior that day, all the hand-holding, the compliments, trying to get me to stay over at his place. She said he had told her they were just hanging out as friends to cheer me up after my breakup with Mark. According to her, Jake had been pursuing her for weeks before they hooked up, saying he had never felt this way about anyone before. While we were still processing all this together, the universe decided to throw another curveball. Mark walked into the coffee shop. When he saw me sitting with Sarah, his face went completely white. He practically ran out of the place, which seemed like a strange reaction even for an awkward encounter with an ex. Later that night, my phone lit up with a text from Sarah. She said there was something else I needed to know about Mark, but she wanted to tell me in person. We met up again the next day, and what she revealed made me physically sick. Remember the girl Mark cheated with 3 years ago? Turns out she was Sarah's roommate during their freshman year of college. Sarah knew about the cheating the entire time but never said anything since she didn't know me back then. She said she felt guilty keeping it from me now that we've actually talked. But that wasn't even the worst part. According to Sarah, what I found on Mark's phone was just the tip of the iceberg. He hadn't just cheated that one time, he had been seeing her roommate on and off for almost 2 years. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me old photos from parties and group events. There were dozens of pictures showing Mark with her roommate, all during times he told me he was studying or with his friends. The timestamps matched perfectly with weekends he said he was too busy to see me. I confronted Mark that same night. I was done with secrets and lies. At first, he tried denying everything, saying Sarah was just trying to cause trouble. But when I mentioned her roommate's name, his whole demeanor changed. He broke down crying, admitting the affair had lasted much longer than what I knew about. He begged me to forgive him, saying he's a different person now and realizes what he lost. Just when I thought I was processing all this new information, Jake started reaching out again. He's been sending me messages saying he misses our friendship and needs to explain his side of things. He claims there's more to the situation than I understand, and that Sarah isn't telling me the whole truth. Part of me wants to hear him out. The Jake I knew, or thought I knew, was so genuine and caring. It's hard to reconcile that person with the one who called me emotionally unstable in text to Sarah. But after everything I've learned, I don't know if I can trust anything he says anymore. Surprisingly, Sarah has become somewhat of a support through all this. She apologized for how things happened with Jake, saying she had no idea he was leading me on like that. We've actually started hanging out more, which is something I never expected. She's been introducing me to her other friends and helping me build a social circle separate from Mark and Jake. But something still feels off about this whole situation. Maybe I'm just paranoid after being deceived so many times, but some things about Sarah's story don't quite add up. The timing of her running into me at that coffee shop seems too convenient. And why did Mark look so terrified when he saw us together? I know trust isn't my strong suit right now, but my gut is telling me there's still more to this story that I don't know. I just don't know who to believe anymore or what to do next. Update 2, well, it's been 2 months since everything blew up, and I finally learned the truth about what was really going on. Everything came to light last week when Tom, Jake's best friend, asked to meet me urgently. He said he had been holding on to information that was eating him up inside and he couldn't stay quiet anymore. When we met at a local diner, Tom looked really nervous. He kept checking his phone and looking around like he was afraid someone might see us together. Finally, he pulled out his phone and showed me something that made my jaw drop, screenshots of conversations between Mark and Sarah going back months. These weren't just casual chats. They were detailed plans about how to keep Jake and me apart. Sarah and Mark had been working together this whole time, coordinating their moves like some sick game. The screenshots showed them plotting everything, from Sarah joining our friend group to her pursuing Jake. Their plan was pretty calculated. Sarah would keep Jake distracted and away from me, while Mark would try to win me back before I could move on with someone else. They even coordinated their schedules to make sure one of them was always around either Jake or me. Remember when Mark walked into that coffee shop and quickly left after seeing me with Sarah? Turns out that was their regular meeting spot. They had been hooking up there in one of the back storage rooms where Sarah's friend worked. He wasn't uncomfortable seeing me, he was terrified I would figure out why he was really there. The messages between them were disgusting. They joked about how well their plan was working, with Sarah bragging about how easy it was to manipulate Jake since he was inexperienced. Mark kept updating her on his progress with me, saying stuff like she's starting to soften up and just need more time to get her back. After seeing the screenshots, I felt like I was going to throw up. Tom told me he found out about all this because he accidentally saw these messages on Sarah's phone when she asked him to call someone for her at a party. He had been struggling with whether to tell me or not, but seeing how much this situation was hurting both Jake and me finally made him speak up. I decided to confront Sarah directly. I went to her apartment unannounced, not giving her time to prepare any lies. When I showed her the screenshots Tom had sent me, she didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she laughed and said she was surprised it took this long for someone to figure it out. The truth came pouring out. Sarah admitted she'd been attracted to Mark since freshman year when he was dating her roommate. Apparently, they started sleeping together shortly after I broke up with Mark. All her supposed support and friendship was just a way to keep tabs on me while feeding information back to Mark. The most twisted part? The story about Mark cheating with her roommate was completely made up. Sarah created that lie to make me lose any remaining trust in Mark, while simultaneously making herself seem trustworthy for revealing this truth to me. Those photos she showed me were just regular group pictures she had cropped to make them look suspicious. But karma has a way of catching up. While Sarah was busy manipulating everyone, she didn't realize Jake had started catching on to her games. He noticed how her stories didn't add up and how she always seemed to know where I would be. When I called Jake to tell him everything I had learned, he wasn't even surprised. Jake finally told me his side of the story. He confirmed he never actually slept with Sarah, they only kissed once while drunk, and he immediately regretted it. Those text messages where he called me emotionally unstable were written by Sarah using his phone while he was passed out at a party. She had been trying to drive a wedge between us because she knew he had real feelings for me. That day when he took me out and was being affectionate, he was trying to show me how he really felt despite all of Sarah's manipulation. He said he got scared at the last minute because Sarah had convinced him I was still in love with Mark and would just end up hurting him. The truth about everything spread quickly through our friend group. Mark tried damage control, sending out long messages about how he only did it because he loved me so much and thought we belonged together. Sarah tried playing victim, claiming Mark had manipulated her into helping him. But no one's buying their lies anymore, especially after seeing the screenshots of them literally planning everything together. Jake asked if we could talk properly about everything that happened between us. He wants to explain himself fully and see if there's still a chance for us. I agreed to meet him next week once I've had time to process all of this. Right now, my head is spinning from all these revelations, and I need time to figure out what I want. Update 3. It's been 6 months since this whole mess started, and I finally feel like I can breathe again. A lot has happened since my last update, and I want to share how everything turned out. After discovering the truth about Mark and Sarah's manipulation, I made some major changes in my life. First, I completely cut them both out. I blocked their numbers, removed them from all social media, and told our mutual friends I wanted nothing to do with either of them. Some people said I was being too harsh, but I refused to keep toxic people in my life anymore. Sarah tried to salvage her reputation by telling everyone Mark had blackmailed her into helping him. She claimed he had some compromising photos of her from a party and threatened to share them if she didn't go along with his plan. But Tom had already shared all their messages in our friend group chat, showing how enthusiastically she participated in everything. She eventually left our university and moved back home, claiming the hostile environment was affecting her mental health. Mark made one final desperate attempt to contact me through his sister. He sent this long letter explaining how losing me made him realize what true love was, and how manipulating me was just his misguided way of showing how much he cared. His sister begged me to at least read it, saying he had changed and deserved another chance. I took the letter and burned it without reading it. Then I told his sister that if she ever tried to play messenger again, I would cut her off too. As for Jake and me, we did have that talk we planned. We met at a park and spent hours discussing everything that happened. He showed me his phone's location history to prove he never went to Sarah's place except that one time they kissed. He also showed me messages between him and Tom where he expressed his feelings for me months ago. Jake admitted he should have been braver about his feelings instead of letting Sarah manipulate him with lies about me still loving Mark. He apologized for not seeing through her game sooner and for hurting me in the process. While I appreciated his honesty, we both agreed we needed time to heal from all this drama. We decided to stay friends for now but set clear boundaries. No mixed signals, no flirting, just honest friendship while we both work on ourselves. It's been working well so far. We hang out in groups and can finally laugh about things without any underlying tension. Our friend group has actually grown stronger through this whole ordeal. Tom became one of my closest friends after exposing Sarah and Mark's scheme. His girlfriend Lisa started a strict no-drama policy for our hangouts, which has made everything much more peaceful. We do game nights every Friday now, and it's nice just having fun without worrying about hidden agendas or manipulation. I took everyone's advice about focusing on myself seriously. I joined a kickboxing class where I've made new friends completely separate from all this drama. I'm doing better in my classes now that I'm not constantly stressed about relationship issues. I even adopted a cat from the local shelter. He's much better company than any manipulative ex or fake friend. Last week, I heard through mutual friends that Mark and Sarah started dating officially. Apparently, they bonded over their shared manipulation and decided they deserved each other. Good for them, they can play their games with each other instead of hurting other people. Jake asked me out for coffee yesterday, just the two of us. Maybe someday we'll explore what could have been between us, but for now, I'm happy focusing on my own growth, and surrounding myself with genuine people who respect me. Life is too short to waste it on people who see relationships as games to be won rather than connections to be cherished. Some may call me cold for how completely I cut off Mark and Sarah, but I don't regret it. Sometimes burning bridges is the only way to stop toxic people from crawling back into your life. I've finally found peace with everything that happened, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next, on my own terms this time.